More than 500,000 kilometers in one of the harshest continents in the entire world. That's what this Mercedes-Benz W123 has already done, and it's still going strong. I want to invite you to come and join me on the passenger seat. Let's go out for a drive in this beautiful environment out here. Funny enough, in the same kind of foggy setup than that first video that I did with the W124, the driving video. If you haven't seen that yet, put a link up here somewhere. But for now, let's go out in this car and talk about what makes it so special. Talk about how it started with me and the W123 and do a couple of comparisons to the W124, and then also explain why in the world these cars in Africa are very famous and very special. Because some of them spend their time in a garage just being driven out on Sundays, and then some of them are out there in the field doing the hard work. These are the heroes to me. Let's get into the car and talk about why. One of the privileges of driving this car is that you can't just get in and dash off. You have to glow quite a bit in advance. I said to my son the other day, it's probably the worst getaway car, this. But it heightens the anticipation for this 5-cylinder diesel to jump into life. Listen to this. And when it does, it's just butter smooth. All right, let's do this. Getting the undercarriage cleaned very nicely with the bushes. Very interesting where my story with the W123 starts. This is not my W123, and I'll get to that in a minute or two. But the very first W123 story started about 20 odd years ago with a 230E W123 automatic. It was a car of somebody that I knew. I got to drive quite often. And at the time, I didn't have the appreciation for this car just that much, because compared to everything else, it was kind of lethargic. The auto box was slow. The engine didn't feel peppy. None of it really excited me. But there was the understanding that this is a different kind of car. There's just a completely different quality basis to that W123. That was about as much as I could gather. I didn't know that more than 20 years later, my W124 would have exactly the same engine as in that 230E automatic 123. Exactly the same engine. 136 horsepower, 4-cylinder, 2.3 litre, 8-valve inline. And it's just amazing to think that now that engine, that car, everything about the W124 excites the mickey out of me. This is the great thing about Africa, isn't it? Diverse landscapes, on the road, off the road. It's what a car has to go through. It's not an either or, it's always a bit of both. A good mixture, so to say. And now I need to come back to the bit about these cars out in the field being the exciting ones. I'll tell you why. In Europe and probably everywhere in the world, you'll have those exceptions of older cars, classics, exotics, that are just kept in a garage under a car cover and being moved every now and then. And that's totally fine. But I really love the ones that are out in the field, the ones that need to be at work. And these cars here in Africa are really the Swiss Army knives of the motoring society, because they can do just about anything and everything. These old Mercedes are being revived, they're being patched up, they're being fixed up, they're being rejuvenated and revived with sometimes parts from other cars. So it's very difficult to find a complete perfect version of one of these out in the field, because they've been patched together. That's really what makes these cars so special to me. It's not about finding them in pristine condition. It's not about finding them in 100% original condition. Who cares about that, really? It's about the adventures that they've undergone and how they've made it there, patched up and all. As we said, more than 500,000 kilometers already, but by the time a good friend of mine who owns the car actually bought it, let me just let this guy pass. By the time he bought it, the speedometer had already actually come to a halt. And it stopped at 369,617. And that's so special because of the M617 engine, which is the infamous 3-litre 5-cylinder diesel engine. No turbos, no funny bits and pieces, just pure engineering, direct injection, no intercooler. Yes, is that door closed? There we go. These cars have to endure so much of these roads and get fairly used to them, but I'm not going to be driving on it just that much, purely because it's freaking uncomfortable. With this pop in here. The M617 is an engine that you really need to get used to. You need to get used to driving this car. It's an occasion, it's an anticipation, it's a game of knowing what the car does and what it can do, and also about its limitations. Hello, Butti. Also about its limitations, and then understanding where the sweet spot is. Because you've got to find that sweet spot, otherwise it'll frustrate the crap out of you. These cars aren't fast. From the factory, from the word go, they had a relatively chilled 0 to 100 time of about 17.5 seconds. So, in the middle of all, my microphone decided to be full, run out of capacity, so I quickly had to empty that, and we're ready to go again. Once the engine's warm, then it actually starts a lot easier. I do know that you can sometimes even swing it without it without the light going off. But I still think it's very good practice just to do it properly. Right. So where were we? We were talking about this OM617 engine. We're talking about this OM617 engine, 5-cylinder, 3-litre, and just how special it is, or what makes it special. To me personally, it's this powerhouse that needs a bit of time. It's not going to go anywhere rapidly, but it's the way that it does it. You sort of learn how to work with the motions of this engine, and you can really drive it super torquey. Check this out. Now the speedometer, as you can see, is got a mind of its own, but check this out. We just let go, second, third. There is so much torque. At 30 kilometers per hour, we're in 4th gear. That is remarkable, and that's the amount of torque that this engine actually has. I think it is, oh gosh, what was it? 170 Newton meters, 172 Newton meters at 2,400 RPMs. 2,400 RPMs. It feels like that's quite high for a diesel, at least in my opinion. But nevertheless, there's just heaps of it. That's maximum torque. Doesn't mean you have to wait until you get there in order to have a good dollar per torque. Power is up at the facelifted model to, I think, about 88 horsepower. We're back on the crazy gravel road, but we'll just do a quick stint on it. .88 horsepower, and the nice thing is if you rev the engine up ever so slightly, it has this lovely purring sound to it. Let's listen to this. Once you go fast enough on this road, then the sink isn't that bad, but I'll still get off it pretty soon. Anything from 45-50 kilometers per hour, and even a road like this becomes quite smooth, at least in a Mercedes. Now let's do this again on the tarmac, just to give you a sound of the engine at slightly higher revs. Listen to this beautiful cacophony. Oh, peak power, as we said, the 88 horsepower or so, comes to you at 4,400 revolutions. 4,400 in such an old big diesel. I was very surprised when I read that. That's quite a lot. But when I drove with my good friend Marcus, who's also the owner of this car and of Retro Rentals, and we'll talk about that again a little bit later, we did a journey from Munich to Italy and then across the Italian north, the mountains towards France and the north of Spain, and all the way down to Barcelona and back on roads less traveled. That was our off the beaten track rally, and he drove that 190 diesel with only 72 horsepower and a 4-speed gearbox as well. Quite revvy. I was a bit nervous about that, thinking it's a diesel, you don't drive a diesel like that. But in essence, you can. If they made peak power to be available at 4,500 RPMs, it's probably because you're allowed to go there and fetch it. It's not something you have to do, and that's the joy of this car, is that you have all these possibilities. You can just cruise it, chilly, or you can also give it a bit of stick and then hear that infamous, gorgeous song sung by the 5-cylinder 3-liter diesel. And then when you do stretch it a bit like that, you realize that the next corner demands you to slow down. In other words, you're going fast. It's a lot quicker than you think. Nowadays, I think we're so used to the fact that cars need to be able to do all kinds of things. You can buy just about any set of wheels. You can buy just about any set of wheels, a little 900cc engine, and still the car will be able to do 160, 170 kilometers per hour. 0 to 100 will almost always be less than 11 or 12 seconds. And in a sense, that's kind of made it a bit boring to me, because cars also feel like they don't have that much personality anymore. I'm really not trying to diss anything, but just sort of cars that feel like they're just being produced in order to have them. And that's a shame. But on the other hand, it also makes these cars stand out so much more. These guys just become so much more special to me in the light of that which we have nowadays. Superfluity, but it's about that shallow. Here, you're really still involved, engaged with the car. You need to know what you're doing. You need to plan ahead. You're involved with the driving. I I feel like modern cars sometimes want to take so many things away from you so that you don't have that sensation that you need to be doing a lot. But when you take away the involvement, you take away the experience. The things in life where the intensity of the experience was heightened, those are the things that matter to us. Take that away, and we ask ourselves why we exist. I've had this car for about a week now. I wasn't quite sure just where to place it, because everything by default gets compared to the W124. And right now I'm burning with this flame to figure out what it feels like to drive a W124 with a 2-liter diesel. It's the same 2-liter diesel, only 72 horsepower, and a 5-speed gearbox. I would love to know what that feels like. And then the 250, and then the 300. And the 123, wow, what solid engineering. A worthy predecessor, which you can't really say because it was there before. But the gear change on this 124, on this 123 is even better than on my 124. This one is just sublime. Every gear sits as perfectly as hitting a bullseye. It's beautifully, beautifully orchestrated. Fuel consumption is around about 9 to 10 liters. I don't know how full the tank is or how big the tank is. I don't bother. So many of the gauges on this car seem like they've got a bit of a mind of their own. They do their job. The speedo sort of indicates what you're doing, plus minus 30 kilometers up and down, shaking around. The heat gauge cannot be accurate, showing me right now with slow town driving. It's probably one of the hottest indications I've seen it giving, and it's at like just over 50 degrees. Like that just can't be. I don't know. You guys let me know. You drive a diesel. Is that normal? I don't think so. Oil pressure's at 3. That's perfect. And the fuel gauge is still showing more than full after having driven I don't know how many kilometers, because the speedometer doesn't work. Stopped beautifully at 369,617, which is also the engine code. Right. We're going to head out on a little stretch where the road's just ever so slightly longer. I'm going to keep quiet just for a bit so we can listen to the sound of this car, and then we'll end the video at the end of that. I can't stop being amazed at how an engine like this, 500,000 kilometers later, still ticks over the way it does. Well, it's just clockwork. It's just clockwork. Beautiful. The way the clutch feels and the way the gas takes on your input, the gas pedal, the diesel pedal I should say, is astonishing. Like this little harmony, this little marriage, like everything's been discussed beforehand. You got to drive this car with a sense of feel and anticipation. and the gear changes. It's very harsh, very hard, but not a lot of play, no bonanza effect, just solid engineering. Ready for the next 500,000 kilometers. Mechanically, it's still so sound. We'll park down here at the beach, just finish off the video. Again, listen to the sound. Whoa. It's quite a hefty bit of torque, man. I'm telling you, this goes. I would love to drive the 240 diesel just to sort of compare the two. And if you guys think that's a good idea, let me know down in the comments. And then maybe I could try and organize that. Oh, by the way, let's just switch this off. Oh, that doesn't seem to work. I didn't know this, but with the older diesels, you have this stop valve. And that's how you end the ride. Look at that. Should have taken off the camera on the roof there. But isn't that just a sight? Wow.